In this one, we head round the Yorke Peninsula. We fail in our hunt for colourful lakes, we fail in our attempts at paddleboarding, and we eat a Cornish pasty that would fail a Cornish pasty test, if ever there were such a thing. South Australia and the Yorke Peninsula in particular are well known for their salt lakes. We headed to Yorktown in the south of the peninsula to its Salt Lakes Trail. The area around Yorktown has over 200 salt lakes, many of which are known for their vibrant colours. This lake is meant to be pink.
Nope.
The lakes are formed from accumulation of salt and minerals and rainfall runoff, and the dry climate evaporates the water, leaving behind the salt. This lake is meant to be pink.
Nope.
The lakes around Yorktown were harvested for salt and gypsum. The gypsum was used to make plaster of Paris, and in the early 1900s, most plaster made in Australia was made from gypsum from the Yorke Peninsula. This lake is meant to be pink.
And again, nope.
Most of the lakes around here are meant to be pink, though others in this area are known for their blue, green or purple hues. We did visit at the wrong time of year though, when water levels were at their lowest, meaning that they weren't particularly colourful. It was impressive just how many of them there were, and whilst driving this part of the peninsula you just kept on passing salt lake after salt lake. From there we headed on to Berry Bay Beach, with its crystal clear water. We'd heard about the rock pools around here that you could go for a swim in, so it was time for a dip. We were quite surprised by the amount of fish in this pool. Also quite surprised by how much the current pushed you around from the waves that crashed over the rocks into the rock pool. It was a fairly corrugated, bumpy road. This is what you get when you leave a GoPro on in the back. We headed on to Flaherty Beach, once dubbed Australia's most beautiful beach. We thought we'd try our hand at some paddleboarding. Unfortunately, I left the GoPro running and it ran out of battery, so this is all we managed to capture.
You're just letting the wind take you.
We then drove on to Moonta along some of the straightest roads that either of us have ever been on. The town of Moonta is in the northwest of the Yorke Peninsula. Moonta derives from the Aboriginal word Munta Montera, which means thick, impenetrable scrub. We decided to check out the local museum, which is housed in the old primary school. We soon learned that it was quite a difficult place to build a town, but was made worth it by the discovery of large copper deposits in 1861. The museum told the stories of hundreds of Cornish people who were recruited due to their specialist knowledge of copper mining. The mines opened in 1861 and eventually closed in 1923. There was no reticulated water in the area until the 1890s. Water collected by the miners in underground tanks was often polluted by waste from animals and the mines themselves. Epidemics of typhoid, cholera, and diphtheria were common. The sweet shop is well worth a visit, selling old-style sweets. Before heading on to the miniature train which takes you around the mine shafts. Until the 1890s, most of the mines were dug by hand. The deepest shaft went as deep as 770 metres. The train drives you around engine houses, remains of settling tanks, and the remains of railway cottages. Here you can see the tailings heaps, made up of the content that they dug from out of the ground. A precipitation plant was set up in 1900 to recover the copper from the tailings heaps. Seawater and sulfuric acid would be pumped over the top of the heaps and allowed to percolate down, turning the copper sulfides into copper sulfate. The mixture was then gravity-fed to the precipitation tanks, some of which were filled with scrap iron. A chemical process took place with the result that copper was precipitated out. Once recovered, the copper was then sent to Wallaroo, a nearby town, for refining. The mini railway is built to pass by Munta's actual train station. Passing by these rocks, it was pretty clear to see the green of the copper deposits. In all, there were about 130 kilometres of shafts and drives in this area, so it's obvious to see why a lot of the equipment is still left behind. We headed into the town of Munta itself, which has a lot of information boards about the history of the town. And it's also clear to see that the Cornish had an influence here. Although I put it to you that this is a Devon pasty and not a Cornish pasty. We were staying in a caravan park in the town of Wallaroo, a few kilometres from Munta. The caravan park had a walkway down to this beach. There was no one on it. The Yorke Peninsula is definitely great for beaches with hardly anyone on them. It's also great for crystal clear waters and stunning sunsets.
Australian coloured diamonds and lab-grown diamonds, and creating one-off unique pieces.
Maybe you should give them a visit.
Crosser & Co, your local...
It was time to hit the road again. One of the things I was beginning to love about rural Australia was the one or two fingered wave. Although to other motorhomes, generally it was a full-handed wave. Soaking in the sights of the stupidly big Australian trains and the Gawler Ranges in the background, as we head for the Yorke Peninsula, which will be the topic of the next video. Cheers for watching, hopefully catch you in the next one.